Prayer is turning our whole being to God and staying there. The trouble is that all sorts of things seem to spoil our attempts to pray or even prevent us from praying at all. You could call them or if onlys. If only I weren't so pressed for time. If only so and so were not so impossible. If only I didn't feel so tired, then I could pray. We wish we could jump over the fence out of our own plot of grass and onto the text, as if our spiritual life would suddenly become greener on the other side. We are missing the fact that God wants us where we are, here and now. We need to turn if only firmly on its head and say, only this, only now. This is where I will meet God. It doesn't matter how unsatisfactory or chaotic our lives are. Prayer is still possible because God is not waiting for us to become worthy of a spiritual life or expert in its techniques. He simply asks us to open ourselves to Him so that He can be given space to love the confused, selfish person we are. That is what prayer is about. God's love for us and our response to that love. Not our own so-called spiritual achievements. Often prayer simply consists of bringing God the things that have been happening over the last few hours or days, during which we may hardly have given Him a thought. The last thing we should do is say to ourselves, I've been letting prayer slip, so there's no point in starting now. There is every reason for praying now. God wants us as we are, not as we think we ought to be. If we attempt to pray when we are miserable or angry, we can find it difficult to concentrate. Familiar patterns of confession, thanksgiving, praise and meditation seem lifeless. Again, that does not matter. Prayer is not an activity which depends on our skill, like swimming or cooking. Prayer involves coming to God as we are, with our pain, distraction, ill temper and all. Everything is raw material for prayer, including the darkest parts of our lives. Even our worst emotions can become prayer's content. Prayer's pain, prayer's energy, and prayer's joke. Far worse than making a mess of prayer is giving up praying altogether. This is not to decry the more traditional forms of spirituality. If our lives are going to be rooted in God, we do need some sort of basic pattern of prayer, however often we break it. But prayer does not have to end when we finish our quiet time. It can permeate all of life, including the weary and unhappy parts of it. It seems a contradiction to say that we should protest and say yes to God when painful things come our way. But that is the paradox of prayer. Protesting alone could leave us in a vacuum with nothing other than our misery to hang on to. Just saying yes, on the other hand, could lead to a false piety, where we repressed our true feelings and meekly accepted everything unjust and unpleasant, as though it were the will of God. We need both the freedom to explode to God and the courage to accept the truth of what is happening to us. People sometimes see prayer only in terms of complaining to God about their problems and asking Him to take them away. If He doesn't provide instant relief, they decide that prayer is not worth the trouble. But asking for help is only the beginning of prayer, not its end. If God does not immediately remove our difficulties, we have to find a way of working through them. This is where the mysterious business of saying yes to God begins. The fact that we are sometimes hurt or anxious brings us close to Christ in His suffering. As Christians, we are called to face our own pain and the pain of the world, and to hold the whole mess in the powerful love of the crucified and risen Christ, to be healed and redeemed by Him. Jesus' ordinary, everyday clothes shown, the clothes of work and sweat and travel. His ordinary body was transfigured, the body prone to weariness and pain, and destined to suffer much more. The same is true for us in prayer. Please like and subscribe.